I have been hearing for the last several months about the wonderful things that's happening out in the San Fernando Valley as a result of a ministry called Cloud and Fire Ministries. And so as things happen here on the show, we have invited Melody Rossi, who is the founder and executive director of Cloud and Fire, to join us here in studio, and she's brought her husband Pride. And so, guys, welcome to the Frank Pastore Show. Hi. So, Mel, one of the things I read the bio, okay, and so you're a budding opera singer, not just budding, you were a professional,
right?
And I imagine you wanted to begin touring the world and singing with Pavarotti and Bocelli and doing Lake Como and the whole thing, but here you are doing ministry out in the San Fernando Valley. You've earned the nickname the Mother of the Hood. You were a teacher at Sepulveda Middle School in North Hills. And I read the story at your website, cloudandfire.org, and I want you to share, how do you go from being an opera singer to working with poor Hispanic youth in the San Fernando Valley? How does that happen?
That is a really good question, and I will try to buzz through it. But I was, as you say, working as an opera singer, and my husband and I had been trying to have children for a long time, and we found out that we had problems with infertility, and in 1994 I had to have 2 surgeries in 1 year, and in the second surgery the surgeon made an error and punctured my small intestine, and he didn't realize that at the time. So for 5 days, the contents of that were spilling into my body cavity and poisoning me, and I nearly died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they had to do an emergency surgery, and told my husband that I probably would not make it out. And so as a result of that, I was in bed for nearly a year.
Wow.
And it also left me unable to have children, and I was so sick that I couldn't go back into singing, at least not then. And so after this year of spending this agonizing time in bed and really searching my heart and seeking God's face, I felt like I had to reinvent myself, and I was sort of lost. I didn't know who I was. And just really out of desperation, I signed up to become a substitute teacher in LAUSD.
Music.
Well,
teaching music?
No, to teach anything. As a substitute teacher, they just send you wherever. So I was teaching, middle school art one day and high school French the next day, and so that was before they took French out. But
sure, right.
Anyway, I was going back and forth to different schools, and I'm pretty good in front of an audience because I'd done that a lot.
Yeah.
So I kept getting requested to go back over and over to Sepulveda Middle School, and that is a school in the community called North Hills, which is in the city of Los Angeles. But that school was performing in the bottom 2% in the country, and the high school that school fed into had a 76% dropout rate.
Wow.
And my mother was a college professor in education. And I was just appalled to know that somewhere so close to my house, there were children who were failing school at that rate.
Okay.
And as I was there just saying, Lord, I want to be in your perfect will. It doesn't matter where I am. I'll just go wherever you want me to go. That's when I realized that I started to fall in love with those children.
Oh.
And I thought, if I had my own child at that time, I would certainly not have time for these other children.
Right.
And some of the kids in my classroom, I eventually took a contract at that school and became a permanent teacher because my heart was so bonded to them. And some of the kids in my classroom were, already going on drive-by shootings. They were little gangsters, little hoodlums. And yet God gave me a special love for them. So I taught in that classroom for about 3 years. And after 3 years, I felt like God was saying, quit your job and start something after school. And so I did that.
But you loved that. You loved teaching.
I loved it. It was one of those moments, I don't know if you've ever had that, where God leads you in a different direction. You thought everything was going smoothly. I mean,
yes.
I had really, and I know our stories are somewhat similar in that, you had this whole baseball life, and then, you're doing something very different. But I loved singing, and that door closed for me. And then I found a new love, which was teaching.
Right.
And that door seemed to be closing, but it was really not because I had to walk away from that. It was because I had to walk towards something else. And so I started this little after-school club, and it was really nothing. I mean, we hung out. It was my former students. I think the first time I brought a Chinese checkerboard. And one of my teaching assistant friends came with me. She was a real prayer warrior, and we were praying for that community, praying for the school. And we just invited kids to come after school. We met in a little church down the street from the school. And the kids came. Much to my surprise, they came.
How many kids came that first day? Do you remember?
I think the first day, well, actually, I think the very first day, maybe we had 5.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Is that I mean, just because you're a popular teacher and you're pretty and everybody liked Miss Rossi and all that kind of stuff, but I'm thinking it wasn't a huge turnout.
It wasn't a huge turnout, but we said, okay, we'll be here next week.
Okay.
So the second week, I think we had maybe 12 or 15. And by the third week, we got the idea, okay, now look, we're meeting in a church. We could do whatever we want. So I just look back to my life. I was a kid who was outside the church, and somebody brought me in.
Sure.
And so I grew up in Sunday school, and I remember they would give us these little verse cards or, Sunday school books. And if you come back and you memorize the verse, they give you a little gold star.
Right.
So I said to these kids, these are, little rough kids from the neighborhood. I said, okay, memorize this. Go home, memorize this. Come back next week, and I'll give you a prize. And so the next week, I think there were about 12 kids that came back saying, I know it. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And they knew the whole scripture. These
Really?
are kids that were totally unchurched
No,
kids.
wait, this is a junior high? This is 7th and 8th grade?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
6th, 7th, and 8th grade
and I'm
in
telling
a
you,
rough area
yes.
with a 76% dropout rate at the high school.
That's right.
And you've got drugs and drive-bys and prostitution and crack
That's
and gangbanging the whole in that neighborhood. And these kids are memorizing Bible verses in order to get a gold star from you?
Right. And
I love it.
You know what the thing is? They want someone to look at them. They want someone to notice them. And that doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in. And so they would do it because it was a way to just belong to something bigger than they were. So what happened is we just said, we'll do this until, they're tired of it. That was 11 years ago. And those kids just kept coming and telling their friends and bringing more kids. And eventually we had a cohort. Our first group was kind of a cohesive group that stayed together. And we got that group all the way through junior high and high school. And some of those young people are with us today. In fact, one of them was at our youth center today, putting his arm around me, saying, Mom, I love you.
Oh.
And he was a kid that was in my 6th grade classroom when he was 11 years old.
Oh.
So we have had those kids, that young man that I'm talking about, his name is Saul. If you're listening, Saul, hello. I've had some of those kids 13 years in my life.
Melody, how many kids have gone through the Cloud and Fire Ministries thing?
Right now, we serve about 450 students every year. So some of those are repeat students, and some of those are students that we just have for short term, especially in our work with incarcerated
So we're looking like
youth.
1,000 kids over 11 years.
Yeah, at least.
And these are kids from, quote, unquote, a rough area. And
a rough area is a huge understatement.
Oh, yeah, because of the problems. All right, so cloudandfire.org is the website. Quick break. We'll continue with Melody Rossi, and we'll find out why she has earned the title Mother of the Hood.